D, wait for it, delightful.
Check out the name tag. You're in my world now, Grandma.
What's up, nerds? So today we are going to be reviewing She-Hulk season 1, and we are going to just chit-chat about this this show because we have different opinions of it and everything. And I think some same opinions and stuff, but we're just going to chit-chat about it and get down to the nitty-gritty and everything, and hopefully you guys come along for the ride and everything. So Barry,
yes,
my first question for you is, and really just offsetting, what did you think about this show overall?
I certainly don't think they reinvented the wheel, and it wasn't the second coming, as one might say. So I wouldn't say it was a 5-star deal or a 10 out of 10. It was, I would say a 3-ish, 3.5 out of 5, 8 out of 10 kind of deal.
I feel you. I did not like this show. I would not give it a 3.5. I'd give it like a 1 at best. It was not my favorite. There were some things that I did like about it, and I do want to discuss those when we get to it, but yeah. So I real quick just want to ask you, what was your over and through this entire season, before we get into the details of our thoughts, what was your favorite episode of this season?
I would have to say the one with Madison, but not where you think.
Yeah, I really did like Madison. Did you like it just because of Madison, or did you like it for other reasons?
No, I think she was the highlight in that episode, but I thought
It wasn't Wongers.
Yeah, Wong was funny. Wong was good. I'm trying to think back about what I said in my review, but I think for me that might have been the episode where the show found its humor. Like it was kind of fits and starts before that. But I thought that, there was action. They had the action sequence when they were fighting the demons. And I thought that the magician guy, I forget his name, he was funny. And I don't know why they said the writers, I know the writers came out and said they can't write courtroom stuff.
Right.
But to me, every time they were in the courtroom, I thought they did a good job. So in this episode, there was, an extensive courtroom thing, and I thought they did well with it.
I have to agree, and I mean, I can say something about it right now. When I really feel like that they should have done the more courtroom scenes, because I personally thought that they weren't as bad as everybody was. A lot of people want to talk about how it's not really lawyer talk that they're doing, but I thought it was fine for the comedy of this show. And there are I can't think of what the name of the show is, but there are lawyer shows that don't seem like there's very much lawyering going on. It just seems like they wrote kind of funny stuff. But I do think that they didn't utilize the Ally McBeal characteristics that they talked up so much beforehand. And I really feel like they should have done that more.
Yeah, Ally McBeal was a very weird show.
Yeah.
Did you watch Ally McBeal?
I did. Yeah, I did.
So, because they had the whole biscuit guy. He was
biscuit guy.
And then they had who was the straight guy who kept saying he dated Lucy Liu on the show, and
I don't remember all their names.
It's
been a while.
Yeah, it's a long time. He had weird idiosyncrasies, like he'd be like, "Oh, kneecap," and they just utter like he liked kneecaps or whatever, or knee pits.
And I honestly think that stuff like that would have been way better for this show. I felt like they should have contained this show to that office space, and then done her She-Hulky stuff. I mean, and I just want to say, and I know some people don't like when people like me bring this up, but if they just would have utilized the source material of the comic books, especially like Dan Slott's run, and then I can't remember the guy before him off the top of my head, and I wish I would have wrote it down, but their run on the comic book wasn't like mind-blowing, but it was pretty good, especially that I thought that it had a good mix of lawyer humor slash superheroism.
Yeah, see, that's the one thing I don't have is I don't have a basis of comparison or basis for comparison to the the comics, the source material. So that's where you kind of have, well, I don't know. I want to say you have an advantage in that way when you're watching it, but I wonder if it isn't in some ways a disadvantage, only because I wonder about myself. Like if I knew the comics wellish, I wouldn't be able to not compare it.
Right.
So it keeps you from sort of evaluating it on its own, but at the same time, you not being familiar with it is, so it's like a 50-50 thing.
Yeah, I have to agree. I have to agree. Yeah, there is that balance. And I do think that because I read the comic books that I'm just like, I'm constantly comparing. But I also go, they really could have utilized it just a little bit better, because those comic books aren't too bad. And it's the only thing Dan Slott wrote at Marvel that I like. The rest of his stuff is shit. My favorite episode was definitely episode 8 with Daredevil.
Yeah.
I've seen people say that they didn't like Daredevil because they should have kept his dark aspects. Now I didn't mind Matt Murdock having a more lively and carefree personality. I thought that the acrobatic moves from episode 8 were an added bonus, and I wish that the Netflix version would have used that more. I definitely liked the flirting, because it was different in how he flirted with Jen compared to the Netflix show. But it is a part of his character, and it is faithful to the comic books as far as that goes, or at least I think so. And I do think that the director did a pretty good job that episode. And I liked how that he had his bullwhip and he used that and everything. And they added new flavor so that the characters like him, like I said, more acrobatic in his fighting style. It was nice to see that.
Yeah, I'd have to say that was probably my second favorite episode now that you mention it.
Right on. Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought they had really good chemistry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like meet cutes, so I always love that shit. I like I just love stories. Like whenever I meet a new couple, I always ask them like, how'd you guys meet? And I'm always interested in that stuff because it's just really nice and everything.
See, I didn't watch the Daredevil show. I watched Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and then I did watch The Defenders.
Oh, well, you missed out on the best one out of all of those.
She watched. I have to go back and watch it, but
yeah, I mean, season 2 is probably my least favorite season, but I feel like they brought it right back home in season 3. So
that's good.
Yeah. Okay, so who was your favorite character out of the main cast of characters?
Well, it seems kind of boilerplate to say Jen, but I think, Jen.
Gotcha.
I think
right on.
She, and I don't want to get too far away from your question, but a lot of people, and it's not just yourself that didn't like the show. I'm sure there are a lot of people that didn't.
Oh yes, there's plenty.
It's a lot. And I think, and I think a lot of reviewers out of the gate just were not going to give this show a chance. I think you did. I think you went
I was excited for this show.
Yeah. I think, we won't mention any names. Necrotic, and others.
The usual suspects.
Yes. Just were looking to hate it, I think, from the beginning. And
right.
I think they found what they were looking for. And they had decided from the trailers that this character was going to be trash. But
right.
I didn't think that at all. I think, I think she was very affable. People said, oh, she's going to be perfect at everything. She's such a trash character. No, she bumbled through everything. She was hapless. She, had crap luck. Mm-hmm. She screwed things up. So I thought she was very relatable in that way, especially in a comedy show. So I like that character a lot.
Yeah, I did not like Jen. She upset me. Well, I just didn't like it because I feel like the writers, when it came to Jen, by the way, my favorite character was Nikki. Even though Nikki kind of annoyed me also, because I was just like, I don't know if I'd be friends with you, Nikki, but I feel like I related to Nikki because I was like, I'd be like that. Like I'd be all super nice to Jen's mom, even though she was super annoying and not, in my opinion, she was such a yenta, but at the same time, I was like, I totally get it. But at the same, and I was like, maybe it's just because I saw too much of myself in Nikki. Nikki was my favorite. But I think Jen, when it came to Jen, I think the problem was you had too many people writing her, and they all didn't chit chat with each other, because in the first episode, she talks about how she can control her anger and she knows how to be a lawyer. And she's so, she knows how to do her job as a lawyer better than most men that mansplain to her. But then in episode 8, where she's with that leapfrog guy, she doesn't take time to ask him what fuel he put in his boots. I'm all like, a lawyer would sit down and ask these kinds of questions. So it's like, you can't sit here and give me this long speech about how you're just so freaking fantastic and then end up not being so freaking fantastic.
All right. Because you would have to ask, did you use this suit as it was rated?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and she didn't even ask him any question. She was just like, oh, will it malfunction? You definitely have a case. And I'm all like, what? Okay. Right. Let's roll. And even if that would have just been the case, I would have been fine. But then, yeah, the Daredevil stuff was really the only stuff I liked in that episode. Okay. So besides the main cast, who was your favorite character?
I liked the guy that designed the clothes. He wasn't in it very
Luke
much.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Or Jacobs? Was it Jacobs or Jacobson? It doesn't matter.
What was his first name? Jacob. I don't remember. He was very funny.
Yeah, he was very funny. I liked it when he's all like, what is there, a hag convention? I was like, oh, I was like, I like you already. You're fun. Mine was Madison, of course, because I really wish they would have brought her back, at least just for that last scene where Wong gets him out of Emile out of prison, just her in the background like, hey. Yeah, so I really like Madison. Okay, last question, and then we can start talking about this show.
I have to change my answer though on the last one now.
Oh, so it's Madison?
Because I forgot Madison somehow.
Right. No, I get it. Listen, I asked you this question willy-nilly. I get it. It's totally, you reserve the right to change your opinion at any point in time. If halfway through this you're like, I changed my mind, I liked Wong the best, we'll go with it.
Okay.
All right. Last question. What was your favorite cameo / Easter egg character that's like from the comics or from another Marvel movie or anything like that?
So who did we have? We had Daredevil, Hulk,
Abomination. Gosh, what was her face?
Titania.
And then the other lawyer. Oh gosh, what was her? Mallory. Mallory Book is from the comics. Right. Pug. Anybody from the comic books, Leapfrog, Immortal, the Immortal guy.
That guy.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who else is from the comics. I don't think that magician is from the comics. What was his name? Blaze, but it wasn't.
Johnny.
Yeah, but he's not from the comics though. Or at least if he is, I don't know who he is.
Right.
Yeah, anybody from the comic books that was your favorite cameo?
I'm gonna say Daredevil.
Right on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with you and say Daredevil also. He was my favorite, just because, like I said before, I really liked his moves. I feel like in the Netflix show, even though I do like that show, I don't think that, because Daredevil is acrobatic. He can jump from like building to building and stuff, and I don't think they had the budget to utilize that, and I don't think that they did it.
All right.
All right. Okay, now let's get to the nitty-gritty of this show.
Yes.
It started off with episode 1, and I have to tell you right now, I from the get-go, I had problems. I didn't like, I didn't like, for instance, that they have all this, exposition about like her blood, and then they just and then when it gets to the end, it just falls off the rails, and I'm all like, and kind of in their defense, it was supposed to be originally a 10-episode season, and from what I've been reading online, they took stuff from one episode and they put it in another episode. Apparently Daredevil was supposed to show up earlier on in the season, like within the first half of the season, not the second half of the season. So it sounds like they just and they had to do reshoots and stuff. A lot of the fourth wall breaking, which I want to talk to you about that. A lot of the fourth wall breaking they had to do in reshoots, and so I feel like this show was such a hot mess out the gate, and the first episode did not really, like, I was just like, oh man, this show, for me personally, I was just like, man, this is not what I thought it was gonna be. What did you think about the first episode in terms of the show? And like its overall arcing thingy.
I liked the first episode a lot. That one, though, was such uh, a focal point for the haters because of that one scene where she says, I control my anger infinitely more than you, which I had hoped they would walk back later and have her say, that was at some point, have her have like a come to Jesus moment. I keep making Gentile references.
That's okay.
So, but she, I kept hoping they were gonna have her walk that back, and have her come to a realization that she kind of was talking with a chip on her shoulder, but they didn't do that. So, anyway, the reason I bring that up is because people were so focused on that one moment, and I found myself defending that moment, defending that episode more than sort of just taking it as its own. I'm saying, I came at it at a point from the point of view I came to it at by the time I did my review was I was in defense mode. So
right.
It was hard to sort of in some ways evaluate it on its own. But and of course, you know what? I think I said in my review at the time that I wish they hadn't shortcutted the origin story.
Right. I wanted to talk to you about that, but go with your thought because
they shortcutted it a little bit, by doing that 3-month. Well, first of all, they did the 3-month time jump, so they never we're supposed to believe in 3 months nothing happened, but not only that they just shortcut. Well, I don't know. She spent that time on the island or wherever with Bruce, so it was a couple of weeks, but I don't know. It seemed like they shortcutted between those two things. They did a shortcut of the early stages of her situation. So I like the episode a lot as premieres go because he Hulk's in it and she's in it and there's a fight and the whole thing. But at the same time, they shortcutted that stuff, and so I don't know. Maybe not a 10. Maybe a 7.
Right on. Yeah, I before I talk about the origin, well, let's talk about the origin story, and then I want to talk to you about the haters. The origin story, I really feel like they bumbled this. Most people know in the origin in the comic books, she gets shot by a gangster, and then Bruce is there, and he gives her his blood, and then she gets to become She-Hulk or whatnot. And then this one, I felt like it was they're just like, oh, we're just going to do a car accident. And the blood she just happens to get cut and the blood just happens to go into her cut. I thought was very weak and lazy. I'm all like, listen, I get it that you've got problems from the get-go with your show in terms of like budget and, reshoots and constraints and all that stuff. But I just go, you're telling me you can't write a better origin story than this? Her origin story was like what, like maybe 4 minutes. I was like, this is just weak as shit. And I'm just like, you can't tell me that you guys sat down and thought about this. It was the first thing you thought of, and it was the laziest thing you thought of in terms of origin stories go. Yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
It was a little quick. Somehow I still liked it. Don't ask me how. Because it was funny. And
you like what you like. I can't like I tell people, I'm not going to tell you what to like, but I can't tell you that I like something that I don't.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, okay, let's take a break from all the show talk and let's talk about these haters and everything, which I have been called a hater myself, which is fine. I'm not really one of those people that cares about that stuff, but this show did not help in terms of giving fuel to the fire. I think one thing that came out was I think that Jessica, I don't know if it was Jessica Gao, but they said something about like this was just an FU to the toxic male trolls, and I'm all like, you're gonna waste so much money and time just to make a show to say fuck you to online trolls. I was like, well, of course they're gonna hate on this, and I think also not only I think that Marvel nut huggers / Marvel fans, I just think that they need to start considering the faults of these shows and stop loving every single thing that Marvel puts out. I think that most of the times, if the show or the movie includes really clever concepts or really great emotional beats, we can focus on the positives. But I think that when it comes to shows like this, personally, I think that they just constantly were just trying to beat the fan that's going to be negative over the head, instead of trying to say, hey, you're going to hate this show, but I'm going to pull you in and try to make you love this show with my clever writing and my, my good stuff. Because I do think there was good stuff in this show.
Yeah.
I just think overall it was just bad. What do you think?
I don't know why they say that stuff in the press.
I think Jessica Gao needs to stop talking, because the more she talks, she just keeps digging that hole, or, she keeps just, tying that noose. And I'm just like, honey, stop saying, like she said, like, we didn't know how to write lawyer talk. And I'm like, why would you admit to that? Why would you admit to that? This was, I can't remember all the stuff. She blamed the fans for like bad ratings. I can't remember off the top of my head. She did a lot of this stuff. And I just go, stop talking, stop taking interviews, because you're not good at it. Just go write your show.
Yeah, even the guys behind Star Trek, though, who was behind Discovery, I can't remember which one of the showrunners it was, but he said a dumb thing too about like, we did this to piss off the fans.
Yeah, which I go, why would you say that? Like, I'm like, me personally, like, keeping to She-Hulk, I didn't want to hate this show because I did enjoy the comic books, as I said before. But when you're saying stuff like, oh, my goal was to piss you off, like, I go, okay, well, I'm already pissed off because you said that was your goal. Goal exceeded. I'm now mad. I'm not going to look for the positive things in your show. I'm only going to look at the negative because that's what you want.
Yeah.
But I do think that some people, and I have no problem admitting to it. Like, I think, like, if you ever watch that RK Outpost, what an angry individual. I thought I was mad. He is pissed off at everything. And I'm all like, you need to calm yourself down. Because some of the things I think that people like have a tendency to focus on, I'm all like, that first speech. Okay, I did think it was a little ridiculous because she's all like, I know how to control my anger better than you. And I'm all like, do you though? Because if you watch him in that first Avengers movie, he can change at will to become the Hulk because he's always angry, but he knows how to not pull it out, the Hulk, at every single moment. So I'm all like, and then and I just want to say, like, I know that a lot of people want to say like the stuff in there, like the cat calling and stuff, and then calling women females that Nikki says in that last episode. I'm trying to remember some of the other stuff. I just go, some of this stuff may take place, but it's not as prevalent as people. Like, I've never heard / cat called anybody. No, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying I've never done it / witnessed it. Like, I'm not on the street like, hey, baby, I got what you want. I got what you need and everything. And, I'm not all at work, like, look at these females. They don't know how to work right and everything. So I think that at some points in time, these writers, they only focus on the things that have happened to them, and then they over exaggerate. Like, I'm all like, don't get me wrong, these people do exist, but I just go, online, when it comes to when they were like, oh, well, they should have hired the best person for the job, which I do think they should always hire the best person for the job. Or when you had like, why did they have to make it a woman? It was a man first and all this stuff. I go, that stuff does exist, but it's only online, and that's not real life. That's not real life. Like, when I talk to people about that, they're just like, oh, this character just sucks. Like, She-Hulk just sucks, in my opinion. Like, I'm all like, I don't care if she's the new Hulk of the MCU. She's just a bad character for me personally. What do you think? Go. Sorry, I talk way too much.
That's okay. No, I think if you're gonna see, it's okay to say stuff that's exaggerated, like you point out, or not representative of reality, if you are trying to demonstrate that your character, just for whatever reason, happens to have that point of view.
That's a good point.
Accurate or not.
The
thing there, though, is you then, if that point of view is not accurate to real life, and it just happens to be the way they see things, you then have to show them sort of realize that over the course of a movie or a show, or whatever, sort of realize that that's not reality. Like they can have that point of view, but unless it's real, at some point they have to sort of disabuse themselves of that notion and come out of it and say, I kind of had a jaded outlook about men or life as a woman, and
Mm.
it really was a skewed perception, and I realize that now. And I said after that first episode that because the hate was so intense after the first episode,
For sure.
I was just saying, like, can we not, like, after the
Like,
first episode,
dial it back.
yeah, can we not just put the thing in the garbage? I mean, so let's give the character time to develop. Let's see if she walks it back. And she personally didn't walk that back. I think that the surrounding writing kind of rehabilitated some of the man-hating stuff that they started out with. I think they balanced it out a little bit, but uh, it, it they needed to do more, I think, to show that she realizes that position. I don't think they did anything actually to show that she realizes that that position wasn't necessarily accurate, and I was disappointed that they didn't do that by the end of the show.
Right on. Yeah. Okay, let's get back into the episodes. Okay, so episode 2 was basically her with Emile Blonsky and getting him, trying to get him out of jail because she gets fired after that first episode in the courtroom, which I just want to say, this is okay. So she does get fired in the comic books, but it goes back to, and like I said before, I read the comic books, or you said before, I read the comic books, so I was a little bit like comparative. But I really feel like when it comes to Jen in this show, I didn't feel bad for her when she got fired because they didn't set anything up. Like she got fired because she stopped a crazy person from attacking other people.
Yeah,
But in the comic book, she gets fired because she becomes She-Hulk. And because in college and in high school, she's like this big nerd or whatever. When she becomes She-Hulk, she becomes a party girl. Like she's out, having a good time. She's changing into She-Hulk and then partying it up. But in the show, oh gosh, and in the comic book, she gets fired. Her last straw is she does a photocopy of her butt on the printer at work, and they're all like, Jen, we're gonna let you go. We found this picture of your butt. And she's like, well, how do you know it was me? And he was like, it was a color copier, Jen. And like, for instance, in that one episode, I think it was episode 2, when that guy comes up to her and gives her the new job, she throws up on him, kind of like she did with her old boss in that episode. And I'm all like, there's ways that you could have gone about this. I think that they did show some stuff that's from the comic book that it was a nice touch, but they didn't really go anywhere with it. Yeah, that's my thoughts on that. But okay, so she gets hired and she does this Emile Blonsky case. How do you feel about this case? Because it started in episode 2, and then it went on through episode 4, because that's when his parole hearing was.
oh right. As I was saying before, I don't know why they said they didn't do good courtroom stuff. I think procedurally it was well done.
Mm-hmm.
She, brought in people to say good stuff about him. She brought in Wong to say that he broke him out against his will and that he said, you got to bring me back. So I thought that, that was good stuff because especially in a parole hearing versus like a trial, what you're trying to show is remorse and rehabilitation and all of that. And I thought they did that. I really liked Blonsky. I should have said this earlier because there were a bunch of different characters I liked. I liked Blonsky a lot. Now, there, again, I don't know how accurate it was to the comics.
I don't remember her defending Abomination in the comic books, if she did, but yeah.
But I
Yeah.
mean,
This is not the Emile Blonsky from the comics. I'll
okay,
say that. It's
that's what I
not.
meant.
Yeah.
But I liked his characterization because, in the beginning, from the trailers and in the beginning, you're thinking, oh, this is the Abomination. He's a bad guy
Hmm.
and he's going to do bad guy things. And anything he says that's conciliatory or uh, contrite is he's feeding her a line. He's lying and he's up to something. But
Hmm.
then, no, they showed throughout the show that he really was just genuinely this thoughtful guy who was trying to help people. And I don't know, I like that.
I didn't like it just because it was such a well, first off, I didn't think that Emile Blonsky should have got out of prison. I thought that, and that's where I go to, the writing on this show is bad. So which, bums me out because because he says in the episode, like, it wasn't his fault that he got this jank super serum or soldier serum syrup, whatever. But it was his fault when he injected himself with the Hulk blood at the end of Incredible Hulk. That was him. He made the leader do it. The government didn't give it to him as an option. So I'm all like, I'm sorry, but he turned himself into Abomination, and now he wants to be sent out of jail because he tore up a whole city block. That was his choice. Um, and then I felt like the writers did not do a good job explaining why Wong broke him out of prison. Because as soon as, if you remember from that episode, they were like, "Why did you break him out?" And then as soon as they go, they cut to a different scene, and then they come back, and he's like, "And that's why I broke him out of prison." I was like, "What kind of jank writing is this? You didn't have a good reason. You just like wanted to say that kind of thing." And then when he did get set free, he had those like 7 women, and then he just dumped them in the end credit scene. And I'm all like, oh, I wish they would have shown that, because I'm all like, they weren't too much of soulmates now. And I honestly thought they would have made him the bad guy. Because I felt like I feel like overall they didn't go far enough in terms of the intelligentsia thing. I felt like that was just a big, like, they just went over a cliff with that because they didn't go anywhere with it. Um, Emile Blonsky, I felt like they didn't go in the right places with him. I mean, there were so many contradictory things, and that's my problem with the writing on this show. I felt like they had the writer's room in that final episode, which I want to talk to you about. But I feel like that writer's room was not indicative of real life. I feel like these people were not in the same room when they wrote this show. So I didn't care for Emile Blonsky personally in this show. Go ahead.
I don't know. It's hard to ignore the things you're talking about. I don't know. I'm a sucker for a character that's uh no, genuine's not the word. That is earnest
Right on. Yeah.
and knows what they're talking about. And so in the episode where she's in the therapy session,
Mm-hmm.
I thought that the way that they had him manage that was, you can't say realistic because the characters he's talking to are comic book characters, but his sort of approach, the therapeutic approach, seemed to me to be similar to how therapists are portrayed in other media. So I
Right.
thought it was, because they could have painted him and it might have been better. They could have painted him as a guy using his therapeutic knowledge to twist people
Mm.
versus help them. And I thought that he was helping them, and everybody. I don't know. I'm a sucker for that stuff, so I
Yeah,
liked it.
no, I totally get it. I get why people liked him as this little guru. I get that. And I don't fault you for liking it. I mean, like I always tell people, you like what you like. You can't help it. I just, like I said before, I just think that the writing on the show was not balanced, or, even, you know, it wasn't good. Okay. I want to talk to you about some of the court cases, if that's cool. And we can get back, because I really, unless there's another specific episode that you want to talk about besides the finale,
Mhm.
I wanted to talk to you about some of the court cases.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Actually, I'm kind of what do you call it? A legal wonk
Right on.
in my off-camera life.
And right on.
Uh,
Yeah, like, and we had talked about it before, even though the court cases weren't like very lawyerese or whatever, I like you, I did enjoy them. I thought that they were, kind of like, funny-esque, except for the light elf one. I hated that light elf. That episode just was, that light elf was annoying as shit.
Yes.
I just want to say real quick, the twerking thing didn't bother me as much as it did a lot of we'll say just, haters. Because I personally felt like the Megan Thee Stallion twerking thing was indicative of the comic books, because She-Hulk is a party girl at the office kind of thing. Like, she's, hungover sometimes and stuff. So I'm all like, this is how, she was in the comic books. I mean, granted, the CGI was terrible. We can talk about that if you want. But, and Megan Thee Stallion, I don't understand people these days when they stick their tongue out, that thing. I'm all like, why are you, get your tongue in your mouth? No, why are you all doing that? It's so weird.
She just did Saturday Night Live this week. Did you see?
She was
the host of
oh,
Saturday
was it good?
Yeah, she did a pretty good job, but her nails were out of control. The woman has 4-foot long fingernails, and she
Yeah,
talked with her hands, so every motion is this, and she kept doing, like you said, the tongue thing. And so, yeah, I don't get that.
I don't get that either, but like, I don't know. I think women just do stuff like that for them, like the nails, for themselves and other women, because I'm sorry, you don't need flashy stuff to get me to come approach you, kind of thing. I'm all like, I'm not gonna be like, oh, your nails are so nice, you want this dick? I'm just gonna be like, hey, you want, I got something to show you, it's my dick. So yeah, so but in terms of courtroom cases, I really liked the one with Matt Murdock, because it's indicative of the comic books, but I think it was in the Daredevil comic books, not in the She-Hulk comic book. Don't quote me on that, because I can't remember, and I didn't look through my stuff to check that out. But I did like that they went up against each other in court. I just wish they had done it like a better way, and it was longer. What were from what you can remember, what was your favorite courtroom scene or case?
Let's see. So, well, probably the whole Madison with the
Oh, that
machete
was pretty great.
and all that. Yeah, because the interesting legal question there is, how can you? And we don't have to deal with it in this world because there is no sling ring and all of that.
Or
But
magic. Magic's not real.
right, or magic. So the whole idea of, well, he signed an NDA and he signed an agreement saying that he wouldn't use these things. Well, how do you enforce that? Like, how do you injunct someone from using magic if it's not proprietary? Like, I suppose the
Right.
system is proprietary, but magic itself is not. So you can I didn't get that, but to the extent that they could put that in a story and have you suspend your disbelief, I thought they did a really good job. And I loved how they brought Madison in and she handed a drink to the bailiff.
Yeah, and just, you
And
can
then,
drink that. I'm
and
not sick.
yeah, and then the judge said, "I'm not gonna like totally rule.
Yeah.
I'm gonna consider everything," and she sort of just left it hanging, which I think goes back to what I was saying a minute ago. You kind of have to, because how do you? It's magic. Like, how do you? How does the legal system jibe with that?
Right.
So it was good. I thought that at the end, she sort of was a cop out, really, but she said, I'm gonna have to consider it. It needs further consideration. So I thought that
Right
was
on. Yeah, nope. That was that was a great courtroom thing. It was super fun. Okay. So now can we talk about the final episode?
yeah.
Okay. What did you think about the final episode and the wrap up of this show?
I was disappointed in the finale.
I agree.
Like I said, I liked the show start to finish, 3.5 out of 5, like I was saying. But then, and I recognize it, like I say, it wasn't anything fantastic, but I enjoyed it. I didn't really have any disappointments until the end. And it wasn't because I thought that the intelligentsia plot was all that exciting, or or who wanted to get her blood. Like, because I know you were saying over the course of your reviews, they weren't giving us any more of that story. They just kept like dropping breadcrumbs and not really getting into it. And there was only so many episodes left. And at one point you're like, there's only like two episodes left. What are they going to do? We don't know who the bad guy is.
Right.
You're saying that. So that wouldn't have bothered me so much if at the end they had revealed a little bit more and then cliffhangered it. It almost would have been better for them to cliffhanger it than what they did, which was drive it off a cliff.
Right.
You know, it's and the theatrical term is Deus Ex Machina. I think you might have mentioned that too before, where it's basically God of the machine. They used to use it in the ancient Greece. They would write a play where everything is crazy, kind of like on this show, and you're thinking, how are they gonna wrap this up?
Right.
And then what happens is literally they would lower a god character like on a hoist, and the god would come down and say, essentially, everything was a dream, or I'm fixing everything at the end. And that's kind of what they did here, where they had all these plot lines going: Titania, the Hulk King, aka Intelligentsia, Blonsky, and then I would have preferred a cliffhanger to what they did, which was Jen comes out of the thing and talks to Kevin and just flips it, and everything's tied up. And I don't know. It's almost like, if I didn't know better, I'd say that they were like, you know what? We're probably not going to get a second season. So as much of a cop-out as it would be, we need to sort of figure out how to not cliffhanger this. But now, if they do get a second season, they're in a weird position where you got to start over, and they're really going to leave all that stuff pat like they did it. I don't know, not good.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think that, and plus, I go back to the writing of this show. While watching this episode, I'll be honest with you. I really didn't start to really like dislike it until that final fourth wall breaking, which I want to talk about the fourth wall breaking just one second.
Yeah.
But when it comes to this episode specifically, first off, when they started out with the intro, and it was like the intro from the 1970s Bill Bixby TV show, I thought that was brilliant. And I honestly thought they were going to do a big Bill Bixby-esque episode, but with She-Hulk. And I was like, ooh, this is brilliant. I was like, I love this idea. I was like, it'll give a kind of a sense of like, what that show was like, because I didn't watch that show, but I did watch those movies, those Hulk movies. And I loved them when I was a kid, even though they're not the best in terms of special effects, but I did like them a lot. Like, my favorite one is the Trial of the Hulk, because Daredevil shows up and he just looks like a ninja, but like his mask only goes here and everything, but I still liked it.
It was Rex Smith, right?
What was that?
Rex Smith, I think.
Yeah. It was, I really liked it, but I really liked that opening. I was like, this is good. But then they turned it around to where it wasn't what I thought it was. And I was like, oh, okay, never mind. Just that intro was really, really good.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about her being arrested and put in prison because she destroyed a couple of TV screens. And I mean, and I said it in my reviews, but she was justified in smashing those TVs, because if a sex tape was on a big screen in front of my coworkers, my parents, and strangers, I would be absolutely mortified. And I would probably start smashing shit too. I'd be like, I turn it off now. You got 1 second and I'm smashing this shit. So I feel like she was justified in that. And then she grabbed that intelligentsia guy, but she didn't hurt him. She was able to let him go. And the DOD, they, put her, into our damage control. They put her into custody before that. But I'm all like, all she did was destroy a couple of TVs and maybe like a floor plan or whatever. And that deserves prison? What? And the best,
her came out through the wall too.
Oh, okay. She destroyed a wall and everything. I'm all like, if that's the worst that she did, how is it Emile Blonsky, he gets out and Hulk is not in jail at all because of it? I just go, and her friends, the best they could do was get her out of prison with an inhibitor on, which, by the way, Hulk in the Bruce Banner in the first episode said he couldn't recreate that inhibitor collar thing. But then they do it throughout the entire freaking season. And I'm all like, they did it with Emile Blonsky. They did it with her. I'm all like, I just want to be like, Jessica, did you guys not talk to each other when writing this season? Because there's too many inconsistencies. And I'm noticing like right off the bat. Yeah. How did you feel about her getting arrested and that whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it might have been a bit of an overreaction, but like I said, she destroyed the TV and she came through the wall and she picked up that guy. I'm just wondering if, because when she's fighting with Matt Murdock, she throws a car, right?
Oh, that's a good point too.
Yeah.
And somebody did bring that up when I was talking to him, that she did destroy that parking ramp or whatnot. That is a good point. But I just go, it seemed like everybody was okay with that. She wasn't arrested after that. So why is she arrested now?
The thing too, though, is they didn't actually go to trial. She didn't get convicted.
Right.
She busted through a wall and grabbed a guy and smashed some TVs. So yeah, they arrested her and she was in jail awaiting trial. You know what I'm saying? They were going to bring charges.
Right on.
The way she got out of the charges was agreeing to the monitor. So right. Had it gone to trial, we don't know if she would have got prison so much as probation or maybe just the same sentence. So I think arresting her made sense at that point.
Right on. Now that you say that, that does make sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about Jen from this episode, from the first, in contrast to the first episode. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place, but I wrote down notes and they're all jumbled. But okay. One thing I don't like about Jen in this show is, again, back to the writing, is that I personally didn't feel like I understood who Jen was. Because when you look at her from the first episode, she's this strong, she knows who she is. She's not a doormat. She stands up to Bruce and she says, I'm good at my job. I'm sick and tired. I'm able to handle the anger. I'm tired of people, telling me how to do my job, even though I know how to do it better. I'm tired of being catcalled, all this stuff. So she's not a doormat. But then she turns into a doormat in the final episode when her mom is which her mom is an asshole in my opinion for this, but she's all like, well, I brought some exercise equipment in your room and I exercise every day at 7 o'clock. And I go, you're telling me you couldn't move that, which all you did was an exercise bike. You couldn't move, or what was that, like an elliptical or something. You couldn't move that out of her room just for like a couple of months so she could find a new place to live and a new job. And even if you couldn't, because, maybe you had to break it down and it's like, that's a lot of work. You couldn't rearrange your exercise schedule to fit with, Jen's life. She's got to wake up every day now at 7 o'clock in the morning and leave her room so you can exercise. And it didn't look like it was helping that much. But I felt like her mom was kind of an asshole in this show. I did like her dad, though. Her dad was very nice, I thought. Because I like when
working.
What'd you say?
I'm glad he's working.
Yeah. I felt throughout the entire show, I did like the dad. Like, I liked it in episode, what was it, like 3 or 4, after she got fired and he took her into the garage and he was like, how you doing, kid? I just want to check on you. And I was like, that's a nice touch. I really like that a lot. And then in this one, when they get her out of the jail and he's all like, people go to prison every day. It's fine. It's fine. I was like, her dad is trying his best to comfort her and, spray the reporter's office lawn.
Yeah. I got water pressure for days.
But one thing that this last episode did specifically, and I don't like, was it made fun of the source material, not just the fans. And I go, why would you allow your own show to make fun of your own source material? Because, with that fourth wall breaking, how did you feel about the fourth wall breaking throughout the entire season and then finally this last episode?
I tend to be a fan of fourth wall breaks.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're they're funny. They may have overused it on this show a little bit. And now that I think about it, they mixed it with different stuff. Like, it's one thing when a character has a fourth wall break, but then they like had the narrator. She goes in the last episode, no, we're not doing a narration. And then,
which I would have loved that if they did it. When they started that, I was like, ooh, but they didn't go with it. I was like, oh, never mind.
And then they sort of went meta with it. The fourth wall break became like, I don't know. It got trippy when she breaks through the menu and all that. So
yeah, I did not like that. But I felt like the fourth wall breaking was inviting at points, and it offered a different type of Easter egg that we're not used to. Something that fans normally expect. But I did think that this finale, I thought it was, and I'll use the term bold, but maybe not bold. That's not the right word. It was somewhat, because she has done that in the comic books before. She broke the fourth wall, walked through panels, talked to the writer of the comic book. So I thought that was fine. It's just, this was not written well. This wasn't cleverly written. Like, I was like, okay, we're going to go here, but you didn't do it in a good way. It's like you had an idea, but you didn't know how to execute it correctly. And from what I understand, they had a completely different ending than this, but those reshoots was fixing that. So yeah, Titania shows up, Bruce Banner shows up, all that stuff. That part I didn't mind it, because I was like, all right, it's crazy, but whatever. And like the blood thing, I was just like, all right, they're just gonna wrap this shit up. It's like a friggin' season of American Horror Story, where it's like, it's really good until like the last episode, and they just wrap it up by everybody getting shot and everything. I'm like, right. Okay, how did you feel about She-Hulk meeting Kevin? How did you feel about that?
I mean, I think it was clever, because of course, when she starts saying, I want to talk to Kevin, you're thinking Kevin Feige, or however you say his name, Kevin Feige. And then they came up with the Kevin, whatever the heck it was.
I don't remember what it stood for.
But so, I think it was okay. They were trying to poke fun at the idea that Marvel Studios is, like a plot engine, and it just turns out content, and it is a monolith, such a monolith. It's not a monolith, but such a big machine at this point that it might as well be a factory, a story factory, versus, something more well honed and crafted, mass produced versus craftsmanship. Right. So I think we're trying to poke fun at that, and I guess it worked, but it was only there to service. I think they were trying to poke fun at that, but they also used it to service this whole, like I was saying before, Deus Ex Machina thing, where they just wrapped everything up in a way that, I don't know. It cheapened everything they had. I think it cheapened everything they did through the course of the season.
I agree.
Yeah, and
I think that's the best way to put it. It cheapened everything that they had done beforehand. Continue with your thoughts. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, and I think it's too bad, because overall, like I said, I didn't think it was garbage. I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was an entertaining show. I liked Jen, because, like I said, she was affable, I think, and bumbled through stuff, and it's relatable in a way. So I liked all that stuff. I liked the humor. And then in the end, it was just not well done in the end.
Right. I personally did not like Kevin. I didn't like, she had a lot of jokes in this one that I was like, okay, whatever about. But like, she's like, what are the X-Men? And he's like, can't tell you that. And I'm all like, okay, and everything. But then she was, one thing she did say was, she talked about, I didn't like that she got to write her own ending. I was like, what is going on here? And then first off, I also thought that Kevin Feige should have made an appearance. I'm like, you're telling me you can't set aside a couple minutes of your day to shoot a scene with this or whatnot, but it's fine. I get it, whatever. And I also felt that it was kind of insulting, like saying like he's just a robot and pushing out, you know, content instead of trying to create something that was, you know, that people loved.
Yeah.
Instead, he's just, you know, pushing out content just for the sake of content's sake. Also, they made a joke about the visual effects team and how like we change back, but do it off screen because the visual effects team have moved on. And I thought that was a little insensitive, considering the fact that it just came out that the visual effects team are, you know, losing time with their family because they're constantly overworked and underpaid and all that stuff. So I thought that was a little insensitive. But you know, I know, boo-hoo for you. And then and some of their jokes didn't land because when he's like, see you in the movie, and she's like, wait, am I in the movie? And he's like, no. I go, yeah, but she is in the movies because Mark Ruffalo said she's in that Captain America 4 movie. He like confirmed it. And I'm all like, so, you know, maybe you guys should talk to each other over at Marvel and tell Mark Ruffalo to stop giving away spoilers because he's just been spoiling everything. Him and Tom Holland, they're just, you know, telling everybody everything. I did not like this scene. I felt like they wanted to go for a certain thing, like talking to the writer and everything. I just feel like it didn't work, in my opinion, or at least for me, it didn't work. And she got to write her own ending. I was like, what? I was like, okay, whatever. Okay.
It wouldn't so bad if she had changed one or two of the elements.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And maybe made it a tiny bit less crazy, but she changed everything they were doing. She got rid of Bruce. She got rid of Titania. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. I really, I wish I kind of want to see what their original ending was now because we can just move over to the final scenes or whatever. So she's, you know, Emile goes back to prison and everything, and she's celebrating with her family and Matt Murdock at a little picnic, which I was all like, are they dating now? I'm fine with that, but it just seems like very like, it's just, I don't know. It's just like, hey, we just met, we smashed, we're dating. And I'm all like, huh, whatever. Okay, fine. Okay. I can kind of go with you a little bit on some of this stuff. But then Bruce Banner shows up with Scar. And I don't know how you felt about it, but I hated it. I was all like, this is how you're introducing a key character from the comic books, a huge character. He looks, in my opinion, ridiculous. His 5 head, it's like his hair starts here, and I'm like, did they shave his head or is he losing his hair? Because either way, I don't like it. I think this character looks ridiculous. From what I understand, he did have speaking lines and there was more going on there, but again, they redid all this stuff and I'm all like, it wasn't for the better, I'll tell you that. How did you feel about this picnic part?
You know, I thought it was good insofar as it continued the narrative where the family is, you know, always trying to either match her up or match up the sister or, you know, whatever. And I think it's funny that, you know, because like you said, are they dating now? I don't think we really know. I think it was more like she likes him and he likes her. And so he went to the picnic, but they don't really know what they're doing. They're smashing, like you said, but are they a couple? You know, they were trying to make a thing of it where maybe they're gonna date, maybe they're not. They're, you know, what's going on there. So I thought keeping that in the story was good.
Right on.
But yeah, introducing Scar at the end only makes sense from a standpoint of, is there going to be a second season and is he going to be in it? Or did they literally just use that because they're going to do something with the character elsewhere in the MCU? That would be really shitty.
I think that's what they're going to do. I think they only introduced him so they can do the Young Avengers. And I have questions like, is he going to replace Hulkling? Instead of having Hulkling, you have Scar. And I just go, okay, but then are you not going to do, you know, is he going to be, it's going to be Scar and Wiccan in a relationship in the comic book, because that's what fans want. They want the Hulkling Wiccan relationship, even though personally I think those characters suck. I personally didn't like those comic books that much, but you know, whatever, it's fine. But I don't think that he's going to be in season 2. I really don't. And if he is, like, I think they did say this is getting a season 2. I don't know off the top of my head, and I didn't look it up. But if it does, I say get a whole new batch of writers. Nobody should on this season should come back. Like, just bring some competent people in, not some Rick and Morty writers. So the last scene is. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You didn't think some of the comedy was clever?
I will be honest with you. I didn't laugh once on this show.
Get out of town.
Yeah, not once. I mean, like, the only time that I think that I smiled and I thought it was fun was Madison. But yeah. I think that was more of the performance than it was the writing. Because I think if you just would have had that somebody play that differently, it wouldn't have been as, you know, funny. But I'll say that the Madison stuff was the only thing that I laughed at, even though I don't think I laughed. But other than that, no. I
thought the designer was funny, the Jacob guy, the whole thing with the Avengers.
I did. Well, that was funny. But I don't want to use the term funny because if I don't like laugh or smile, like I will take it back. Luke Jacobs was I just like sassy gays. So I was all like, when he was all like, what is there, a hag convention in town? I was like, that's funny. But it didn't make me laugh. It just made me go, that's funny. So I smiled. So, yeah, I mean, I'll give you that. Now that I think about that, I'll say that that's funny too. But I can't think of any time that I like laughed out loud. Maybe like smiled or like a giggle, maybe, but I don't think so. I'm like 90% sure I didn't laugh.
You're a tough nut to crack. I really enjoyed the stuff with Wong, you know, and Madison, and then Madison on her own. I thought Johnny Blaze and his manager were funny.
Gotcha.
Let's see. I'm trying to think what else. I thought it was funny where the guy, and that's another thing that they messed up, where the what's his name, the guy that doesn't die there, Mr. Immortal.
Yeah, I hated that. That episode made me like angry because they, you know, I think that there was no good men in this show. I mean, Pug, you could argue Pug and her dad, but even then I felt like Pug, they got a jab at him with that light elf, you know, when he walks out and he's like, I love sexually assaulting women in the workplace. It's my kick. And I'm all like, you know, that character in the comic book has a crush on Jen, not She-Hulk, just Jen. And it never goes anywhere. And I was like, you know, you could have explored that in this show because he wasn't a bad dude. But they didn't. They just explored his shoe, you know, collection. And I was like, okay, whatever.
I mean, some stuff I think you have to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're saving for future seasons.
But this, but see, and I understand what and I've talked to people about this. I understand what you're saying, but I think that when you save stuff for another season, you have no guarantee that you're getting a second season. Look at Hawkeye. They announced that it was going to get a second season, and then they canceled it. It wasn't getting a second season. So I'm all like, you know, you can't save stuff. Do what you can now because you don't know if you're going to get a second chance to do that.
Yeah, right. I see, and I thought that they to sort of counter what you're saying, I thought they balanced out a lot of the anti-male stuff. I thought, you know, like you say, Pug was good, the dad was good, Matt's a good guy. I thought they portrayed Emile as a good dude.
I think that Emile was I feel like he was a good dude, but he was just dumb. Like, and plus he says he doesn't want Wi-Fi at his compound, but then he's all like, Wong, he's like, do you have Wi-Fi at Comertage? And I'm all like, but you don't want Wi-Fi. You need to connect with yourself. What's going on here? Write another haiku. What are you talking about, you crazy bones? Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe they did balance it out, and I'm just trying to find the fact that there's no good men in this show. But because I just was like, every time, like her boss, I'm like, why didn't her boss defend her or like tried to help her out. Like when she went up for that award and then all these other women got an award, I was like, oh, it's a participation trophy. Why didn't he tell her that? Like, why wouldn't you give her the heads up on that? Because that was embarrassing. I was like, her face was like, oh, look at me. I'm an asshole because I'm accepting a participation trophy.
And don't get me wrong, I don't think they balanced it out 100%. I think the scale was still tipped a little bit towards the man-hating stuff.
Yeah, and and go ahead. Sorry. No, you go.
I think it was still a little too much, man-hating stuff versus showing guys as being decent. But because even Luke, he's kind of a sassy gay, like you said. But I think he was a decent guy. So I think they did some work to balance it out. But it was still a little like we hate, the she-woman man-haters club.
Yes,
it's still a little bit. Not in balance, but I thought they did some work, but they didn't balance out completely.
And I take back what I said, that all the men in this show, I do think that they did try to, because Pug, he was a decent guy. And then I do think her dad was a decent person. While watching the show, man, maybe I was just trying to look for those things, because as soon as I saw one thing, I was like, oh, and then I saw another one. I was like, oh, that's what's happening here. Yeah. And then I just picked out all the stuff and then just ignored the rest of it. Well, but I do
that stuff is more noticeable.
Right.
So
right.
I think they had both more instances of crapping on guys than they had showing guys being decent. So I think it was heavy in the man-haters direction. But not only that, it's much easier to show somebody being like a goof or a jerk than it is to, I don't know if it's easier, but it's more noticeable when you show somebody being a jerk, because the behavior that they demonstrate is so off-putting that it makes more of an impact than when they show somebody being decent, because decent is sort of the baseline that, right, we're all supposed to be at least decent. So when you're seeing decent behavior, it doesn't register as hard as when you see somebody say something like, females, am I right? That just jumps out at you. So yeah, so that's the other issue as well.
Right on. Was there anything else on this show, about this show, that you wanted to say? I'm going to ask you one more question, but I just wanted to see if you wanted to say anything else about this show.
Yeah. I mean, I would just go back to what I said in the beginning, that I don't understand the extreme amount of, and as much as you dislike it, you give it credit on certain things and you talk about the things you like. So I've always thought that your approach is honest, whereas I'm not. Yeah, no, really. Where I'm not so sure that's true, because we disagree, but I don't think you're full of crap. You know what I mean? I think you're saying how it strikes you. And that's like you were saying to me, you like what you like. And on your and to sort of put that back on you, it strikes you the way it strikes you. And I think you come at it honestly. I'm not so sure that's true of other people. So
I would agree.
I don't understand, other than saying that they're not coming at it honestly. I don't understand how it could be anything else, that they hate it so much, because, like I said, it wasn't a reinvention of the wheel. It wasn't a 10 out of 10, but I enjoyed watching it. It was a fun little show. I thought it was decent. So, I hope it gets a season 2. I'd like to see a season 2. I think it was, I don't want to say meh, but maybe a little bit above meh. Like I said, a 3.5. So out of 5. So I don't know. I just, that's the big takeaway for me, is I found it to be okay. I found it to be enjoyable, and I don't get the massive hate that doesn't even have little caveats like you do when you say, I like this, I like that. So that's kind of where I am.
Right on. And I would agree with you. There are, and I think that some people, they've made a career out of it. So it's like, listen, this is how I'm going to make my money. And I'm all like, I get it. But I do go, There are some there, not everything in this show you can hate on. I mean, the CGI sucked, but there were some places where the CGI, that last scene where she's walking up the stairs to the courtroom, I thought the CGI was pretty good.
Yeah.
That last the fourth wall breaking scene, I thought the CGI was pretty good.
Yeah.
There's other parts where I'm like, Jesus, you guys did not put in the money in this episode. But overall, I still didn't care for this show. I felt like, for me personally, it was kind of draining. Like, after I was done watching, I was like, well, I'm glad it's over, because I won't revisit this. I won't suggest it to anybody, but and I don't think it's necessary to watch it to enjoy the rest of Marvel, like, some other shows. Like, I felt like you had to watch WandaVision to understand Doctor Strange. But I just I didn't like this show, and I wish they would have done better. And I do think it is getting a season 2. I want to say that I saw it somewhere, but don't quote me on that, because if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I don't want to give you false hope. All right, so my last question for you is, before we wrap this up, is where would you personally like to see She-Hulk next? Not from where we know she's going to be at, like Captain America 4. Where would you like to see She-Hulk next?
Well, other than a season 2, I can't really think of anything. Because you know why? Because it'll be hard to see. I hadn't heard that about Captain America 4. I think the way they presented her in the show, it'll be hard to incorporate her in other things. Partly because of largely because of the fourth wall breaking. Because they did that a lot, and so I don't see how they're gonna work that into other projects. And while I liked the humor on the show, the humor came from Jen, but it came from the other characters to a huge extent. So how that's gonna work into anything else in the MCU, where there's not a whole lot of comedy focus. Like Ant-Man, that character's kind of funny. There's funny stuff in Ant-Man. Spider-Man has some humor, but it's largely more serious, the MCU. Especially stuff like, well, Doctor Strange has humor, but Doctor Strange is much more serious. WandaVision was way serious. There was some comedy. So I don't see how they fit a fourth wall breaking character into the MCU, and I think they're going to struggle doing it with Deadpool as well for the same reason.
Right on.
Other than a season 2, I can't. I think I'd like to see that. I'm dubious about using her anywhere else.
I feel you. I do think some scoopers were saying she was also going to be in Secret Wars, but I'm all like, that's just going to be another, Infinity War / Endgame. So I don't understand how you couldn't incorporate her in there somehow.
Yeah.
But I personally would not like a season 2, because I didn't think unless they completely get rid of the entire writing staff and hire completely competent people to write. But I was thinking they should do a TV special, and I was thinking they should do a Trial of the Hulk, but She-Hulk is his lawyer. I was like that, personally, that was like, I would like to see that, but obviously this is just of my own creation. But yeah. There's, hey, Marvel, I know you're watching, listen to my idea. I think it's a pretty decent one. That Werewolf by Night, I enjoyed it. So you could do another, hour-long movie or special. All right, we're going to wrap it up, you guys. I want to thank you guys so much for listening to us. If you are new to my channel, go ahead and leave all your comments in that section down below. If you like this video, go and hit that like button. I won't mind if you're new to my channel. Please hit that subscribe button. I'd greatly appreciate it. And I will see you guys on the next review. You guys have a good day. She-Hulk smash. Bye.